Hello everyone, welcome to this video by DataSense. So I welcome you all again to this Python exploratory data analysis course. And so far we in this course we have covered about the major libraries, right? We covered them, and apart from libraries we discussed about how to collect the data collection, and after data collection we spoke about what are the various initial inspection that you do to data set, right? That what kind of missing values are there, what are the data structures, what are the columns, what are the rows, what is the size schema of table, right? So this is done. Now my next part will begin. Before moving ahead, right, before doing any kind of visualization, any kind of analysis, the next part, there are few things in the data that you need to be aware of. Okay, the data pre-processing step contains, first of all, there are, as we discussed, missing values which are present in your data. Okay, you need a strategy to address them, missing values, or be it duplicate values. Okay, so because these things can basically they tweak your data, right? They skew your data, they can make the analysis incorrect, right? So if before doing these two steps I make any kind of assumption, I start doing any analysis, any feature engineering, that will be incorrect. Okay, so before making my data ready for analysis, always make sure you sort these two things first: missing values, duplicates, then also comes outlier. Okay, these particular topics are very important, so they should be your first go-to strategy whenever you see your data. Okay, you intricate, you analyze initially, and then the first go-to step should be missing, duplicate, and outlier. In this particular video we will talk about the missing value. There are various key techniques which we'll be using, and so I'll talk about that. Again, we will use the same Bollywood movie dataset that we used in the previous video. Okay, so with this I move forward and we will start the discussion to this particular video. So let us start with our exploration on the missing data on our data set. So first of all, let me import all the libraries that are required. So I'll be requiring import numpy as np and import pandas as pd. Okay, we'll be using them. If we require matplotlib and seaborn, we will see that during the video. So what is the first step? So of course, like while discussing, we'll try to create a blueprint as well, so that whenever you are doing these things later on on any data set, you have a blueprint in mind that what all steps I need to do while handling missing values. Okay, so we will be discussing this blueprint here. So what I will do in this, but let me divide this particular screen in two parts. So whatever task I do, I will do on the left here. Okay, and we will create our blueprint here, so that whenever I will not change the screen, I will just rub it, and we will develop a strategy here. So remember, the blueprint is that whenever you get the data, the first step is to the first step you need to do is list if you have any information. So basically you have to use info. I'll speak about them. Info, and you need to check nulls. Okay, first of all, check null, how many nulls are there. So this should be your first we need to know which all variables have missing values, how many rows have missing values. Okay, so to do that, what we will do, first of all, we will upload the data. So we'll pd.read csv. Okay, and yeah, after this, what we do, just to check, remember, df.head. Through this I can see my top 5 rows. I just want to ensure if my data is loaded properly. Okay, yes, my data set is loaded properly. Now I want to check the basic structure of my data, that how my data set is looking like. So what I will do, check basic structure of data. So to do this, there is a method called df.info. So when you do this, okay, so let's see what comes. What it will give you, df info will give you a list of all the columns. Okay, and it will give you whether it is null or not null. Now remember, our data set has 1000 rows. Okay, so if you see this gives you non-null count. So how many rows are non-null for each of the variable? So let's say this is the variable movie ID. Movie ID has 1000 non-nulls. It means it has nothing missing. Okay, title title has nothing missing. Okay, this title column, it has nothing missing, everything is present there. Okay, so wherever you see, for whichever variable you see there is 1000, you, it means that it is not null. Okay, these many are not null. Now, but if you see budget, box office, and duration, these three variables have only 868, 876, 812, means approximately 120 to 150 rows are missing for these particular columns, right? These particular, so we need to see them. Similarly, if you see rating and votes are missing, and we see weekend gross, these particular variables are missing. Okay, so first of all, so this is our key analysis. What we observe, that there are certain variables which have missing, and we will need to address these particular variables. Okay, so create a list of these particular variables. So what I will do, I'll just for example, just write them down, the basic variable, major variable that I see. So I see budget. Okay, I see box office, I see box office, and after this I see budget, box office, duration. Okay, rating, votes. So duration, rating. This is how you need to do. I mean, you might be thinking why I'm spending so much time writing, but once you do things manually, okay, or you write it down somewhere, it will help you visualize more. That's why I mean, it helps. Okay, then there are like 7 to 8 variables, we'll see them as well. So weekend, grocery, total, screen, I'm just writing down, there are, let's say, 7 more variables. Okay, 7 more variables are there, we will see them, how to address them. Okay, so I hope this particular part is clear. First of all, to visualize which all things are missing. Now what we are going to do is that we will check for missing value. Again, in there is another method that we can use, is, for example, let's create an object missing underscore values. Okay, so what we can do, this to be equal to df dot is null. Remember, we did this part. What it does, that it will create for example, for all of the cells, it will check if that cell is null or not. Okay, if that cell is null, it will give you a 1, otherwise it's not. And what we do is null, after that we do a dot sum, we will sum them up. Okay, and if I do print missing underscore values, so it will give me again the same thing which I just spoke about, that which all variable have how many missing values. Okay, so so how does is null work? That it goes to each of the cell and checks if that cell is missing null or not. If that is null, it will mark it as 1, and when you do a sum, it will take a sum of that. So that's how it is doing. Again, like if you are not able to visualize, let us say there is a column name budget. Okay, budget has five rows, for example. So let's say this is row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4, row 5. What will is null do? It will go to first cell. Okay, it will go to first cell, it will check if first cell is null or not. Okay, so if first cell is null, it will do 1. Let's say it is not, 0 0 1 1. Okay, and when you take sum, so sum will become 3. It will mean that budget has 3 missing values. Okay, so this is how it is done, and you will be able to analyze and understand your data little more in detail. Okay, I see that these many rows are variables are missing. Okay, so I hope the first thing is important, getting to know which all variables have missing value, and that we have done. Now we will move forward to discuss how to address them. So what we did, we just checked that which all columns have missing value. So let's do one thing. Let's create a exhaustive list of columns which have missing value present. So let me create a variable columns with columns and missing. Okay, let me create a column missing. So what I will do, basically, I will select all those columns from this particular data set which have a value in this, technically, which have a missing null, which have a null score greater than 0, right? Something like that I will do, and I'll create a list of that. So let me do one thing. We do that, first of all, we access df.columns. Okay, through this I will get access to all the columns. Okay, now what I need to do, that in this column I need to filter. Okay, so what I need to do, df dot is null. Okay, if the column is null, right, and let's select any. Okay, so through this I will get any row, any column that is missing. And now let's convert. So let me just first of all, let's convert it later. First of all, let's say print columns missing, columns missing. So what are we doing? We are technically, yeah. So see what we did, we took all the columns and we filtered all the column, any column which has basically missing value. And now I just will convert it into a list, to list, so that it's easy for me to view. Okay, so I have this particular thing. Now for a in columns underscore missing, okay, for a in this, print a. Okay, so I have got the list of all the columns that have a missing value. Okay, so this is something that we have now. Now we will move forward towards a visualization of whatever the data is absent. I will try to visualize it using a matplotlib. I'll create a heat map just to check the distribution of missing values. So now we will do some visualization to understand how our missing data is scattered across the various variables. Okay, so for this I'm going to create a basic heat map for across each of the variables, with each of the 30 variables, and I will mark them as whether they are missing or not. Okay, so just follow with me on this particular code. I will show you once the visualization is done. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to import let's say cborn as SNS and import matplotlib dot pyplot as plt. Okay, so I'm using these two libraries. Now what I want to create a heat map. Okay, so if you remember, so before creating, so I want to try a different type of heat map. So let's first of all create a figure size. Okay, so what I will do, plt dot figure. Okay, and what do I enter? Fig size. So by default I take it, like it's my habit that I take it 12 by 8, but it's generally up to you. I mean, you can explore with anything that you want. Okay, now I will prepare some heat map. So if you remember the cborn class, we use heat map. Okay, in heat map we need to provide the data. So now technically the key concept comes here. We want null data, right? We don't want that, okay, I just pass all the data and create a heat map. What specifically I want a heat map for null value. So what I will do, df dot is null. Okay, so what this is going to do, this is going to print up to get me only the null values. Now main thing comes in the chart, that I want either if the data is missing or it is there. Okay, so technically I want a Boolean value. I don't want a scale. Generally when we do heat map, what we do, we create a scale of values. Okay, like from this color to that color, we create a scale of value, that color 1 to color 2, it just varies, right? But I don't want that. I either want it's a null or it's a not. Okay, so two colors. I will choose yellow color for showing yellow or golden for null, and I will show purple to show the regular values, the rows which have data. So technically what I'm trying to create here, let me show you. Okay, so I will create a grid, okay, which will have, for example, it will have on the x-axis, it will have all the columns. So C1, C2, C3, okay, it will have all the columns, something like that, up to C1000, up to C30. And on the y-axis there will be 1000 rows, row 1, 2, 3 and up to 1000. Okay, and I'll create a map. So for each there will be a purple line from here to here. For example, let's say there is a purple line from here to here. Now if there is a missing data, there will be golden like dots like this, or something like this. Okay, with this we will get to know across all the 1000 how is my missing value concentrated. Okay, so you will understand more once I create. So to create this, what I need to do, first of all, I need to use a column bar equal to false. So what does this mean? That when, as I mentioned, we don't want a range of colors. I just want two colors. Okay, so when you use c bar equal to true means you want a range of colors. So I'm doing c bar equal to false. And the next thing that comes is the color scale. So there is a method which this you will remember, method called wordis. Okay, this color scale is purple and yellow. Okay, this you will remember. No, don't worry about that. So there are a lot of color maps, so don't need to worry about that. So what I do, plt, I'll just give a title, plt.title, and heat map. Let's heat map of missing values. Okay, so this is something I want to create, and then I do plt.show. So this is something I want to create, and we will try to analyze what does this look like. Okay, so this got an unexpected keyword argument map. Okay, just let me cross check it. df dot is null, map is equal to word is. Oh, sorry, my bad. It should not be map, it should be color map, right? It should be c map. Yeah, that's my bad. Okay, so again, what is this happening? Verdis is not known as a color map name. Okay. Oh, again, that's my bad. It should be verdis. Okay, so yeah, this happens. I mean, so don't worry about that. Now let's me run this. Okay, yeah, now I have got this color scale. So now at the first you might be thinking, what the hell is this, right? But don't worry, I'll explain. So we have 30 columns. If you see movie ID, title, director, up to critic score, we have all the 30 columns on the x-axis, and on the y-axis we have all the rows from 0 this to 1000. I have all the rows here. The purple thing shows, for example, let's say movie ID, the purple thing shows that the data is present, data is not missing. Okay, and the yellow bars, these show that the data is missing. So for example, let's say for movie ID, there's nothing missing. For title, nothing missing. Director, nothing missing. Genre, nothing missing. Okay, but when we come to budget, if we see that there is missing, there is bar of missing, right? From row 1 to when we reach till end, there are a lot of missing values. Similarly, for budget, for box office, duration missing, language is not missing, right? So if I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and all the columns towards the end have missing values. Okay, the intensity shows that, for example, if you see a dark yellow as compared to light, it means that multiple rows back to back have missing values. Okay, and if it is not the case, otherwise the rows, the distribution is random. So this is what we have generated. Now we'll try to interpret this particular chart, that what all information can we interpret from this particular chart, which we can make use of and before moving ahead. So let me just a little bit make it. Okay, so what was our first step? So our step was to, so our second step was to create heat map. Okay, create heat map of the missing values. So we will try to analyze whatever information we can through this chart. It is highly possible that we might not infer anything, but we will try. Okay, and keep in mind that don't only behave like a data analyst, think of a business analyst, because eventually this is a movie data set. So probably you are working in that company, any production company, or maybe you're an analyst at some production company, something like that. Your idea will be to optimize your take a good decision on your based on movies, right? So we'll think like a business analyst as well, not only like a, okay, null and all that. We'll see which all variables could be important. Okay, so technically all these variables might not carry equal importance, right? So let's see. First of all, if you see budget, let's analyze this budget column. You see missing, right? Randomly information is missing across the data set. Okay, now if you know any data set, how data set is created, it is created with time. the columns are added. For example, let's say the value 1 is added, value 2 is added, with date values keep getting added. Okay, what happens that sometimes the data is missing data is related to specific date. For example, let's say you have a data from 1 January to 30th January. Okay, you see missing data is centered somewhere here. So what can you infer? That okay, somewhere around 10 to 15 January we had a missing data because our source could be doing wrong that time, right? So you can think something like that during that phase. Now let's do one thing. Let's try to visualize this. So we see that the missing value is scattered, and if you remember how many budgets were missing, if you check, budget had 132 missing rows, box office has 124, duration and 188. Okay, and this but once you move down here, you see very high missing values for sequel, OTT release and remake, right? So if you see on the right side of the column, you see lot of dark intensity charts, lines which are missing, meaning that lot of data has been, consistent data has been missing here. Now another insight that you need to see, that if you, now we are checking vertically, but if you try to look horizontally, right, you will see that for all of, let's say for row number 115, you see that which all information is missing, right? You see that this is missing, this is missing, this is missing, this is missing, right? So for a particular column, for a particular row, it could be possible that out of 30, how many, for example, 20, let's say 8 might be missing, 9 might be missing. So you want to analyze that as well, that is the missing value concentrated only on specific variables, or it is equally like missing for all the variables. That is something also you can infer from this. Now comes the third part, that okay, so for example, let's say which all variables seem to be important to you. Let's look at budget, box office. They seem to be this like they have 132 missing values, right? For example, these cannot have, because budget, when analyzing the profitability of any movie and all that, right, budget and box office collection means a lot to you, right? Duration might not be that important because 1 or 2 are here and there can go, right? Similarly, for example, let's say weekend gross counting, that can matter to you a lot as compared to anything else. Okay, whether a movie is sequel or not, that might matter, might not, that might not have a lot of impact. Why I am telling you this particular thing? Because eventually you have to make 3 decisions when you have data missing, right? So what all are those 3 decisions? So that boils down to 3 things. So either you can so let me get it. Yeah, so either you can remove the missing rows, okay, remove missing rows entirely. Okay, so for example, if you see that a missing row, if you see that okay, there is a column missing, there is a cell missing, then remove the entire row. But or you can drop a column. Okay, you can drop a column. So either you remove a missing row, or you drop a column, or you can make some imputation, right? That okay, if there is a missing value, I'll impute something into it. So these are the only 3 things that you can decide. Now comes the main decision. For example, let us say we had this variable. We saw in our missing that remake is 338 missing, okay, and budget is 132 missing. So for example, let us say for budget we have 132 row missing, and for remake we have 338. Okay, now if you say that okay, for remake 338, let's remove all the 338 rows, will that make any sense? No, because you are altering budget, which is more important to me when I have to evaluate a movie's financial success or not, right? Budget means more, and technically I'm removing 200 more rows out of 1000. That is, I'm technically removing 20% of the data, which is not the right approach. Okay, so just if information is missing in remake, removing that might not be the right thing. Okay, then here we can impute with some technique. Budget, let's say 132 is missing. Now here, whether we want to remove that particular thing or we want to add on a value depends upon specific case, which we will see later. Okay, similarly you have to make decision, analyze each of the column so separately, that okay, which column means what could this be. If you see that okay, For example, let's say if around lot, you see OTT release and critic score, you see that for lot of OTT release simultaneous. For example, lot of places OTT release date is missing simultaneously. It means that the information that was coming for those particular dates was not consistent, right? So that could be, and you'll try to check its correlation with your critic score. So does that have any impact on that? Okay, so these all are the things that we will be doing ahead. So we will have to make a decision for each of the variables, either remove the missing values or drop a column or impute. Again, there is no single solid reasoning for anyone to hold true. Entirely depends upon how important that variable is, okay, and how many missing value it has and how much it is impacting the other. For example, a column, right, like for example, if you have 338 remake missing, right, you can either drop this column or you can impute this, but you cannot remove the missing rows. It will not make sense. Okay, for a budget, removing rows might make some sense, but removing the column will not make sense. Imputation will make sense, right? So for each of the column, at least one or two of these three will make some sense, and that is the, as an analyst, that is your decision, that where it comes that how do you decide which particular step to take, whether to drop a column, whether to add, to impute something, or whether to remove something. Okay, so enough of the theory part. I'm just telling you that this visualization will help you understand. Right now we see that data is missing uniformly from everywhere. You do not see clusters. For example, you don't see that these yellow are clustered in a single place, right? These are scattered uniformly. Okay, so right now we cannot make a very good inference out of it. Okay, we see that for some certain type of movies information is missing. No, we cannot infer that right now, right? Data is uniformly missing from everywhere, so we will need to deep dive further. So that's about it. Now we will move into each of the approach or blueprint to handle these missing values.